founder of iThemes, and I'm here today with my good friend Rebecca Gill, founder and owner of Web Savvy Marketing, a great WordPress agency in Michigan. Rebecca and I go back a couple of years now. She is one of my cherished friendships in the WordPress community. We spent some time together specifically over the last couple of months and gotten to know each other more, and she's been helping us with our SEO internally at iThemes.com. If you were part of SEO Week, Rebecca did an amazing 4 days of SEO knowledge. She is the premier SEO expert that I know. I don't know anybody better than Rebecca, and I say that because we're going still through her awesome process. She's a practitioner. She's gotten results, and she's a top level. She doesn't do the shady stuff. She is the carbon copy that everybody should make of an SEO consultant. And I wanted to mention that her course, To the Top, to learn SEO basics. If you took the SEO course that's available online for free now, the 4 days SEO week, she's taken that a step further at my pushing and prodding, by the way, and she's released a very, very comprehensive course. Last time I saw it's like 8 hours of video training, text, great foundational principles. We were talking before this how she needs to keep going with that because there's more and more to do in that realm. But if you want to head over there and buy her course, we'll be putting if you go to Web Savvy Marketing, thanks Ryan, that's where the SEO course, you can see that. Look at the top, it'll say SEO training. Click that and you can buy that. However, I've asked her for a special discount to our community, and I'll share that here in the chat room over at iThemeschat.com. However, today is all about managing client expectations, something that I know from her work with Web Savvy Marketing. Her clients over there, people like Michigan State University is one of her clients. Incredible work that she knows how to do this. And so we've asked her to come talk about managing client expectations. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rebecca. Thank you for being here, part of the iThemes community, sharing your experience and expertise with us.
Thank you, Corey, and welcome everybody. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about project scoping and contracts and using that to really set expectations management with your client base. And, you know, as Corey said, I'm very process focused, and I always have been in my life, and I really have used that over the last six to 7 years of running Web Savvy to make sure that I keep my process highly optimized. And by optimized, I mean I constantly change it in a good way because I learn something with every new project and every new client. So I really utilize a process to make sure that we are creating both a structured project management situation for our builds with clients, as well as trying our best to keep the clients happy, and that's through really solid communication both before we sign somebody, throughout the process, and then after launch. And as Corey mentioned, you know, one of my clients is Michigan State University. We do work with large clients like UCLA and universities and publicly held organizations. However, we do work with individual bloggers as well. So the process that I'm going to be talking about today and the information that I'm sharing, I want you to know that it really does transfer from small projects up to large projects, and it has stuck with us as we've scaled our business from doing just me working with clients to having an international team that actually creates and supports the build process. So, you know, as we move forward with that, know that because you know what, I want you to be able to take something away, and I really want to make sure that the information presented today will help design firms or developers, whether you're small or large, and whether you work with small or large clients. Okay, exceed your customers' expectations, and if you do, they will come back over and over. I love this quote from Sam Walton because you would think that that would not be the case in custom web design, but really it is. I have found over the years that if you make a client happy throughout their first experience with you, they do come back. We've launched multiple websites for individual clients, and that includes both, you know, like Michigan State University, we've launched 4 websites for them, but then we've also done it with really small, tiny companies and clients as well, and it's because you've built up trust with them and you've created that that system where they feel that they can be successful and they want to continue to utilize you for that. And that would either be a website design project, or it could be post-live services like support and maintenance and further changes or refreshes to their theme. Being in business for 6-7 years, we are now to the point where people we launched 4 or 5 years ago are now coming back and saying, you know what, we'd like to do a refresh, we want your assistance with that, which I can't tell you there is no other greater feeling than having one of your clients come back and give you that positive feedback. And I really think a lot of it is due to process. It's not the fact that we have exceptional design skills or exceptional coding skills. I mean, I think that we're solid, but I think more importantly, it's the fact that we have a process that we have continued to augment over the years and optimize. And with each failure, I learn something, and I turn that back into something that I can put into either our proposal, my initial sales dialogue with somebody, or the actual project itself. Okay, successful engagements, and by the way, you're going to see dogs throughout this entire presentation. I thought I would mix it up. Setting your engagements and having something that is a positive experience for your client, that's a start-to-finish approach. It isn't just at go live that you really need to hit it with them. It's something that starts from the very first point of contact that you have with them, and it follows all the way through the process. I know that proposals and contracts are not sexy things to talk about, or they're not exciting things to contemplate and to spend your free time worrying about, but they are really, really critical to establishing solid relationships with people and making sure that you are executing within your client's expectations, and those expectations are clearly met. Let me ask all of you a question. I would like you to think about this and just really take a moment. How many inquiries did you receive from prospects this week? They could be, connections over social media. They could be inquiry forms on your website. They could be phone calls. They could be meetings that you've had with somebody in person. But think about all of those touch points that you've had, and now think about the initial information that your client has provided you, right? Or your potential clients provided you. A lot of the ones that I've had, particularly in writing through our inquiry form, are extremely vague. They don't have enough information for me to even know if I'm a possible fit for them, or to start providing them cost and timing and everything else that they really, really want. And the interesting thing I found is, prospects are really quick to want that cost and timing, and they want you to deliver something really fast to them. But when we are eager to go ahead and move forward in that time frame that they're wanting, we start to trip ourselves up. And one of the things that I've learned over these last few years is the slower I take that sales process and the more I inquire with the client and the more I force questions and answers from them and that dialogue, the better off I am in executing a successful project. If I rush, if I let them pressure me into giving them a quick response back, what happens is we make assumptions, and they're either verbal ones that we've made without further true discovery, or they're unspoken ones, and it leads into a disastrous process in the middle of the execution. And now that I have a team where I actually have dedicated project managers who have to manage the project and take it over for me, and coders and graphic designers, it's even more critical because I'm not the one picking up the pieces. It's them, and I feel really bad if I don't scope something properly. So, that is, that's my first point is it's start to finish. Your success is throughout the entire process, and you really, really want to make sure that you keep that within control and you're managing that process. First step into exceeding your customers' expectations is to know those expectations. You can't make someone happy if you don't know what's going to make them happy or what they need. And I think that that's really important. The more you know about your potential client, the more you can provide them a solution, and you can provide them assistance, and you can make the experience positive for them. The more positive experience you can get at the end of the day, the more referrals you receive, the more testimonials, and the more repeat business. Prospects are always in a hurry with their cost and timing, and they always want to launch and they always want to jump into things, but you're the one that's in control, and you're the one that needs to make sure that you're making them step back and you're helping them figure out what really they need and help define those expectations. And again, the further you can clarify things with them, the better off that you're going to be as you move forward with the process. So now I asked you earlier about the inquiries that you received or those initial touch points that you had with them. Now I want to ask you to think for a moment, and what was your reply? When you had someone come in with a rush or limited information, did you immediately whip back a dollar amount? Did you throw back, information that was vague? Did you blow them off? Did you tell them to go pound sand? Did you refer them to somebody else? There's so many different ways that we can manage that process, and the things that I've learned is the greater effort I put into defining expectations within that first point of communication, the easier the process goes along the way. An example of that is I have a lot of email templates. So if you inquire into our website, it comes to me via Gravity Forms and email. And what happens is I can reply to that, and I have 20 different replies saved as signatures within my Outlook. And that may seem really OCD, and I am OCD, but it has served me really well because especially if I'm in a hurry and I get an inquiry from someone and there isn't enough information, I have a very nice canned email that goes back and says, hey, I would love to explore your project further with you, and I'd really like to help, craft a solution for you. But to do so, I really need a little bit more information from you. And here's some questions I'd like to ask and get some additional feedback from you. There's like 10 or 15 questions. And then I just say, if once I review these, if we seem like a good fit, I'd love to jump on the phone with you. We'll have a live conversation. We'll talk about this in more depth. And what I've done there is I've set expectations so that people know I'm not going to be a really quick response with a price and a timing estimate. They also know why, right? I'm giving them the reason is because I want to be able to create a solution for them, which is I'm trying to be positive in my response. But I'm also controlling that flow of information, and I'm forcing them to give me greater detail so I can in turn provide a much better experience for them. The larger your firm gets, the more exposure that you get, the more clients you launch, the more inquiries you have coming in, the more you need to streamline that process at the beginning and make sure that you're controlling it early on. And you're going to have two types of responses. You're going to have people who think that you're a waste of time and that they have no desire to give you those responses and they're just going to leave. Or you're going to have people who really appreciate your due diligence and they want to have a good dialogue with you and they want to explore the project with you. And my view of that is the people that disappear, that's okay. They would have made good clients for me throughout the process anyways because I'm structured within execution and launch. So if they go away because we're not a good personality fit, I'm really okay with that. And then the ones that I know who come back and provide me really good information, I know they're a potential good fit for us from a process and personality standpoint because they're willing to give me information, which means when we're in the middle of the build and they have to deliver me content or give me feedback on keywords, they're going to produce that as well, right? And so that's going to make the process easier and it's going to really help set for success. Okay, so one of the first things that I do as information comes in is I quickly try to define what kind of client they are. And these are just example buckets that I have for you. And these really relate to small clients, mid-sized clients, or enterprise-level clients. This presentation is the content I went through with Kareem Marucci at Crowd Favorite, and we decided that the content here really does apply both to the small, mid-market, and really large projects because it's the same type of process. What you're doing is you're just controlling that process based on the client that you have and the kind of services you're going to deliver. So when I get inquiries in, I receive them in, and I start to think about the sales process moving forward, I start to put them in buckets, and it's kind of like your website personas. What kind of client are they? Are they just going to be a really simple brochure site that you can whip up fast for them, and it's something that you've done multiple times, or it's just a theme customization that with a theme that you've used 50 times, so you know that there's really little risk? Are they really complex? Do they require a lot of technology, maybe that you have or have not explored yet, and maybe you're going to have to do some research, or you might have some bucket of hours that you don't know that could result. It could be, 5 hours that you could have to put into this project because it's new technology. It could be 50, but putting them into that bucket is helping you control the process, and it's helping you define your scope within your own head so that you can provide those expectations to the client. Functional risk. Does the client know what they need, or potentially is it functionality that you're uncomfortable with? That kind of goes hand in hand with the complex client, but there's varying degrees there. Amateur. I had a client 2.5 years ago that I would not take on because they were an amateur when it comes to technology, and I could not for the life of me communicate well with them. And I told them, I exited poorly, right, from that engagement, because I told them that we were really busy and I couldn't get them on the project calendar for a couple of months. And you know what happened? That client waited a couple of months, and they came back and said, okay, I've waited. Are you free now? Well, now I felt guilty, so I had to take them on. And because they sat around and waited for me through the summer. So I did take them on, even though I knew that the level of technology, that understanding that they had, was really limited. It was going to be a difficult situation. I took them on, and guess what? They are still not launched. And it all comes back to the understanding of, what we're talking about with technology and their understanding of it, and whatever communication we have takes, 10 times to get that achieved, because we just can't get the concept across. And that was a failure on my part, and I learned from it, and it's something that I kind of put back into my process and take forward with me. But that amateur client is a risk to you, and you need to make sure that you're setting expectations for yourself so you can build that into the cost and timing of the project. So if you do have someone who's not very good with technology and is going to need some hand-holding, that you allocate time for that, and you put that into the budget, because then when you need to give that to them, you're not going to feel that you can't give it to them. You're going to have time allocated. You're going to be able to give it to them. They're going to happily receive it, and you're going to make them feel very good about the project. And we have one that we are launching this week that's in the same type of situation. This time around, though, I learned, right? I knew he needed extra hand-holding. I could tell his personality type. I put in a lot of extra project management hours to be able to compensate for that extra time. Guess what? We burned through them. Right? We burned through them, but that's okay, because we didn't go over very much, because I could tell and I planned for it. And really kind of putting people or your clients into the buckets really does help with those expectations on both sides. Although I would never tell a client that they're an amateur or they're a functional risk. It's just kind of, something that I put into my budget, and I actually do sometimes put it into my budget spreadsheet, so I know what I allocated to the project cost and why, and that kind of helps me manage throughout the project. And then when I go back and I look to see how profitable we were, helps me make better decisions moving forward. Okay, so identify your client needs. My favorite is the puppy in the middle who's purple, because that means the puppy's unique, right? Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. And the more that you can figure out what makes your client unique, the more that you can understand what their challenges are, the more that you can figure out a solution for them, and the more that you can create success for them, right? And that does not happen midway through the project. That happens when you're doing your project scoping before you even provided a quote to them or a proposal, whatever your process is, right? So kind of like putting them into their bucket of, are they potentially a financial risk or an amateur client, or those other ones that I had. It's also really trying to figure out those needs so you can figure out a solution and you can create a differentiator for you and your firm. What that's going to allow you to do is, if you can narrow in on your unique client and figure out what makes them tick and what makes them unique and what really things special do they need, that is going to allow you to go ahead and create proposals and projects that are not primarily based on price. I know, there's a lot of discussion on WordPress about racing to the bottom and, being that lowest cost denominator so you get projects. But if you can start really putting in process into your project scoping and developing proposals and contracts based on that, and making sure that it's really client focused, right? you take away the financial because your client believes that there's no one else that can provide that kind of value, and they're much less worried about costs than they are about the solution that you're going to deliver to them. Something I've done recently into our proposal is put in a section that says, these are the project, or what is the verbiage I use? These are your project objectives, goals and objectives. So it's the things the client has told me in email and in conversations that they want to achieve with the project. I put that back into the proposal. So I reiterate to them, I understand what makes you unique. I understand what you're struggling with, right? Let me tell you that I know what this is, so you knew I was listening. The next page of my proposal goes forth and tells them an overview of the solution that we're providing, right? And each one of those solution points is going to match back to their challenges or their project goals and objectives. We follow that up with our plan, our project plan. Now, years ago, I just had the project plan. I didn't talk about that purple puppy in the middle. And I've realized by doing so, it creates a lot better experience at the proposal stage with the client because they feel comfortable that I actually was listening and I know really what they need and how I can help achieve their goals. Okay, select the right process for your client. I have definitely learned, especially as we grow, that you're going to have different types of scenarios. Just like the simple proposal that you're going to deliver, the thing that you've done many, many times, something that's technology driven, or something that's even a paid discovery. And I don't do a lot of paid discoveries, but I know there's a lot of WordPress firms that do. It's just, for us, it doesn't work really well into our process. But there is a type of client where that's really important. And a paid discovery, here's an example, is your client has a great idea for an app. They don't know anything about building mobile apps. They don't really know much about websites, but they have a really, really good idea for a mobile app. They don't have clearly defined functional requirements because they're not sure what is entailed with developing an app, right? But they've got this concept. And you, on face value, think that the concept's pretty good. Somebody needs to go through that discovery phase with them to kind of help ferret it out and figure out, is it a viable app that can be developed? What are the actual functional requirements and the visual requirements and the target market and who it can really deliver, and help document that for them. They can't do that on their own in this scenario. That's a paid discovery, right? You could offer to do that for free, although you're leaving money on the table and you're not considering what your time is truly worth. That is, your time is worth money, it's worth value. Your education, your experience is of value, and someone should pay for that. That is a perfect opportunity for paid discovery. I don't do it. I try to work through areas where I can with clients to help define requirements during the project scoping and prior to the proposal. And if it needs that kind of paid discovery, I send them over to a firm that really is going to specialize in that. But it's something to keep in mind, and it was Chris Loma who preached that to me, and I don't even remember what the project was, but it really did need a paid discovery, and I think if I recall correctly, I went forward without it, and I was doing this paid discovery for free, and I should have been billing for it. But people have successfully billed for it, and you have to use it in the right situation. It doesn't apply a lot of the times, but consider it when you come into that type of client. Don't walk away if you have the skill set and the ability to give them a paid discovery. And the nice thing about that is at the end of the day, when you have that paid discovery done, if you've had a good process with that client to date, you can now quote to do that execution. If you've realized you've gotten through that and you've realized the client is not really somebody you want to work with, then you can give them a written document that gives them all the information, and they can take it to another firm and they can utilize that to get a proposal and execute their project. Proper documentation. I wish I could have some verbal feedback from everybody because I would love to know of the audience who uses a statement of work, who uses proposals and contracts or a master service agreement. I think it's really varied in our industry, and I think that there's also a lot of people who kind of fly by the seat of their pants and don't have structured proposals and contracts, or have very thin proposals and contracts. At WebSaver, we don't use statement of work, we don't use master service agreement. We have a proposal that goes out, and then once the client has accepted the proposal, we will forward over a contract for signature. And then after that is done, that's when I send out these down payment or the invoice for the down payment, and I set our project up in Basecamp. For us, the proposal is critical. I have a very simple contract. It's one page. But the proposal is where all the meat of the information is. And like I said, it's got their unique issues and their project objectives, our solution that we're going to offer. It has our project plan. I've recently added in things like, website maintenance, after go live maintenance, and what is warranty? Do we cover warranty? We have a 90-day warranty period. I put that in there. I explain in the proposal now what is considered warranty. It's a bug with our theme and theme coding. I tell them what isn't included in warranty, and then I follow that up by saying that would be part of maintenance and support. And then I give them information on our offering of maintenance and support and what our hourly rate is for our monthly rate is for that. Here's something magical that's happened in the last 2 months. When I started doing that, people actually started signing up for maintenance and support. And before that, I didn't have people sign up for maintenance and support. And the reason that shift occurred is because I started setting expectations very early on in the process that they needed maintenance and support. And it wasn't because I wanted the money for that. It was because I realized that a lot of our clients weren't updating their websites like they should be, and they were starting to get hacked because WordPress was 1.5 years old. And I don't want that to happen, right? We've spent a lot of time with them creating something that they're going to love and use and get benefit from. I want it to be protected. So now I include inside the proposal maintenance and support. Our terms and conditions at the end of the proposal is like 3 pages. That is compiled from 6-7 years of mistakes that I've made and where I didn't articulate something properly or early on in the process. So I make sure I have something there that someone can read through and say, okay, I understand. I know what is expected of me for both launch, timing, content delivery, image purchasing, all those kind of things are in there, which, it's lessons learned. I had to make a lot of mistakes to be able to really know what to put in there, but every time you do make a mistake or every time you fail to articulate something to your prospect early on and there is a disagreement or some questions during the build process, take that learning lesson and put it back into your proposal. What it will do for you is make your life a lot easier moving forward, and it will make your clients a lot happier. Okay, so I document everything. Corey said I have a strong process in SEO. I have a very strong process in design and development as well, and that's because the more I document for people, the more the information they have, the more empowered they are to make good decisions, the better we can execute for them on time, on budget, and everybody being happy, right? Here's an example: there's a terms and condition in our contract, in our proposal that talks about plugins, that we are not going to modify core plugin code. We're not going to create new plugins that add on to that plugin code unless otherwise stated in the proposal. And the reason I have that is because people were expecting us to say, well, we planned on using plugin XYZ, but it didn't do this that I thought it did. We never discussed what that was during the proposal or the sales process. I didn't even know it was in their head. Well, to protect against that, I've put that clause in there. And so now when someone comes back and says that, I can clearly say, you know what, we didn't disclose that, or we didn't discuss that during the sales process. That could potentially be an option, but it's not something that's included in that plugin. And if they want me to put that in for free, I have a discussion point in our proposal that states that we're not going to do that. That is, it's incremental to the project. So when you're looking at your proposal or your contract or whatever documentation that you have, think about things that go into the project as a whole. Think about past projects you've had, places you've struggled, things you've stumbled upon. Right? Think about all of those buckets and put them in buckets. Like I've got these little colored circles. The more buckets you have and the more definition you can define for prospects, the better off you're going to be during the project, because there won't be all these questions, right? They're going to know what's expected. I know I keep saying this, but it truly is the case. It's what I've learned over 6 years, and if I could have had this knowledge on year one, we would be even more successful today than we were then, because it has served us so well this last year. So let's just look at the buckets one by one. So deliverables. What are you delivering? What are you giving them at the end of the day? That could be functionality. It could be the quantity of content. It could be, images. It could be anything. It could be plugins that you're going to install and configure, the number of design templates that you're going to create, the number of revisions that you're going to do to either a custom design or a theme customization that you're doing. Deliverables are really, really important, and the reason I know this is because on my very second build, back in I think 2009, I had a client who was a referral to me from one of my neighbors. He told me that he had a website that was, I think, 700 pages. So we were going to migrate 700 pages from a non-WordPress install over to WordPress. I, at the time, was a single person firm, and I was manually migrating all of that content over myself. At the time, I did not realize I could check that into the Google Index and have a good idea of really how much content he did have. Here's what I learned. As I started to migrate the content, he really didn't have hundreds of pages of content. He had thousands. He had like 5,000 pages. And guess what was in my proposal? I can tell you what was not there. There was nothing in there about a number of content pieces that we were going to migrate for him. I had no definition of that, and I had no verbiage that would cover me should we add additional. So that was something I learned in year one of the business. Always put the number of content pieces, whether they be pages, posts, products, PDFs, whatever that is, always document what that number is and have an overage. So if the client does go over, let them go over. But tell them it's an increment to the project that you're going to bill at the end that's $25 or $50 or $100 per additional piece of content. I learned that at year one, and it was a very hard lesson. And because it was a referral, I migrated that guy's content. And I did it because I didn't have anything to protect me and say I wasn't going to do it. So, that's my first yellow bubble. I learned really quick. Milestones is another one. What are expectations for go live or for design or for, exiting out of your SEO research and site mapping? If you set expectations of this is going to take 2 weeks or 4 weeks or, whatever that time frame is, there will be no concern by the client when all of a sudden you're 4 weeks longer than what they thought. If you don't set those milestones for them and prepare them for the right expectations, they won't know. They don't do website design every day and development. They need to tell you what is a milestone. Is it design? Is it SEO? And then you need to allow what timing is associated with it and give them a schedule for that. Warranty was something I mentioned earlier. We have a 90-day warranty period. I think other firms have a full year of warranty, but define what is a warranty, tell them what is included in a warranty and how long that warranty lasts. Tell them what happens after the warranty period, that they can be on maintenance with you and support, and it could be hourly support or monthly support. What are those rates? What's included? What can you do for them? Let them know how you can help them, and they will come back and ask for help. Client delays is a huge one, and it's something that we've actually modified in the last 6 months. When you have a client that doesn't launch and they go dark, what happens, right? Do you cancel the project? Do you just put them on hold? Is there a restart fee? How much of a delay is acceptable? Is there a fee to keep that project active? For us, we have a development server that all of those websites that are in development are sitting on. I have to have someone go in and maintain those and update all that software monthly, if not more than monthly, or we're going to have issues because software will be outdated. There is a cost associated with that. You should have a provision for that. We now have a provision or proposals that say if you don't launch within a certain period of our planned project or after we have exited and coded out the design, you are going to go under a monthly service fee because you have to pay for the maintenance of that website. Guess what? People pay it because I've said that in the proposal and they're expecting that that is the case, right? And it gives them comfort to know that we're taking care of them. things happen. I mean, people have life changes, work changes, they get busy, especially in the startup environment. You know, things can get delayed. You need to be able to protect yourself for that along with the client. Payment is another one. What's your payment schedule? Clearly document that within your proposal. Let people know what to expect. Therefore, when it happens, they're not going to be surprised. We never have any issues with payment because it's well documented within our proposal, both what the scheduled payments are going to be for the project as well as how we handle any overages. Exclusions. What isn't included in your project? If you know something that people expect frequently, right, or you've run into it and it was a major issue, put that in as an exclusion. Like my third-party plugin modification, that is an exclusion. Another thing that I do too is if I have a sales process and I've talked through functionality with the client and we discussed something but then decided that we are not going to have that in the project, whether phase 1 or phase 2 of the project or just not at all, I'll document that within the proposal that here are some of the things that we discussed, but they're excluded from the project. That way there is no communication issues, and that gives the client an opportunity to review that in writing and validate that that really is what they want. Because you got to remember, these people aren't doing it. Your clients aren't doing this all the time. You know, this is maybe a once every couple of years thing for them. So they need you to help keep them on track. And by listing out anything that you discussed, it is an exclusion, you help do that. Expenses is another one. Like it could be travel expenses, it could be stock images, it could be the purchase of plugin licenses. There are expenses that go along with this. A lot of our clients are not within our local geographical area, so travel is not a concern. However, you know, one thing that I do is I make sure that if it is local, I try to put in verbiage into the proposal so the client understands that we're not going to be showing up on site every week to have a project meeting. You know, if they want something like that, that is an incremental cost because we now have additional hours for travel as well as, you know, transportation costs. So again, the more that you can include up front, the more happy you're going to have clients throughout the process and at launch. Okay, your contract verbiage or your proposal verbiage and your actual process really need to be in line. And I find this, I trip myself up on this. So whenever we have a new project and it gets kicked off, I have I think it's like a 90-point to-do list in Basecamp, which is segmented out into milestones within the project and then ownership. And so that immediately gets kicked off into a project. And I will reduce off to-do items and add in to-do items for that individual client. I continue to modify that and add in or take away items as business evolves, as we get smarter, as you know, we just understand that there's something better that we can do to help assist with the build process, right? I have had instances where I've done that and then I've forgotten to go back to the proposal and modify it there. Or vice versa, right? I've put something in the proposal within our project plan and then I've forgotten to add that into our template for Basecamp because it's unique to the client. The more you can align those, the better off you are. We give our clients access to Basecamp. They need to be part of it. They have to-dos assigned to them. There's a project calendar. You know, we share messages. But the client feels really safe and secure when we kick off the project. I give them access to Basecamp. I send them a welcome message, and they come in and they see a to-do list and a project plan that is exactly like they saw in their proposal, except now it has a lot more information because they're now seeing a lot of the minutia that my team will go through like at launch, or you know, the things that I go through for SEO research and site mapping for them. They're going to see as I check off things that I want them to see as I'm progressing along. But that's a security feature for them. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel like you've got their back, that you are in control of the process, and this is going to be a good, solid process. The more you can have that all in line, the better off you're going to be. Because as soon as that client hits Basecamp or whatever your project management software is and they see this long project list, you want them to feel good about it as opposed to overwhelmed. And if they've already seen that information in your proposal or you've discussed it, they don't feel overwhelmed, right? They feel like things are going along as planned, and that's a really good experience for them. And it keeps you and, if you have a team, happy because you have less problems throughout the build process. Signatures before work. Here's another one where I wish I could see hands in the audience. I'd like to know how many of you actually start work without having any type of signature or commitment from the client. It's something that we don't do, right? I would have done it on year 1 of the business and probably year 2 as well. I don't do it now. We haven't done it for a really long time. We have contract signature to start, and then we send out the invoice, and I can see them pulling down the invoice and either paying it or getting ready to mail it a check. It's important, and we've had instances because we do theme customizations too, and there's a number of people that just one person will work on that type of project. And I've had cases where some of my team members have jumped the gun and started to work on those customizations when we haven't had sign off from the client and we haven't had the down payment that they need to give us. And then the client decides they changed their mind. Well, guess what happens? The client or prospect at that point, because they didn't end up becoming a client, there's no issue on their end because they hadn't signed off yet. It's our team's fault for jumping ahead and moving forward without having all of the documentation in place. That's a problem. That's us being too eager to move forward. And what happens is you've spent work or your team spent work and you're not going to get compensated for that. So to protect yourself and really to protect your client, don't start until you have all your documentation in place. Okay, ongoing communication is critical, and I love this slide because the dog cracks me up in the old school telephones, but I have never had a client in 6-7 years tell me that we have over-communicated, and we communicate a lot. I've had clients feel that our project manager is kind of hounding them to get feedback on something so we can keep on their timing and keep them moving ahead, or we're nagging them for content, but no one has ever came back and said, you know what, you guys just communicate too much. That's because it's not the case, right? Clients want you to communicate with them. They want you to keep telling them where they're at in the process and how things can continue to move along. They have real businesses to run. This website project or SEO project or whatever it is that you're working on with them, that is not their entire life. It's our entire life, but it's not theirs. They need us in front of them to keep telling them where they're at in the process, what deliverables we need, and what's coming next, so we can keep things moving along. And this goes in both for just ongoing communication or whether it's something where there's been a disagreement or whatever the case is. Don't let that settle. If something starts to go south, don't let it sit for days. Address it as soon as you can, because the faster that you can address it and the faster you can get on providing timely communication, the quicker you're going to diffuse it and the better experience you're going to have for both yourself and your client. Okay, scope creep is another one I wish I could see hands for in the audience. Scope creep, just think about it. How many times have you had a project where what the client asked for at the beginning and what they expected throughout the project has changed? Or maybe the requirements have shifted or something happened in their business and now they need additional things to occur. What was your reaction? Was it negative when that occurred, or was it positive, or was it neutral? My reaction years and years ago was always negative, right? I always got I got frustrated when clients asked for some things that weren't part of their original project. I don't now. Scope creep is opportunities to keep your client happy and to keep your project profitable and even increase your revenue. That is a change order. If a client gives you something new, tell them that's a change to the project scope. You'd be happy to do it for them. You'll get them a cost and timing estimate. We have a standard response for that. And it's 50-50. Client may no longer need it when they realize that that's going to be additional time and additional money. Or they may say, you know what, I really need that, and thanks for being flexible in the project. Since we started doing formal change order notices and we do estimates with clients for any changes, our life has been so much better, I cannot even begin to tell you. Managing client delays, I talked earlier about having clients go dark. I have verbiage in my proposal on how we handle that, right? And we have kind of a structured process where if a client goes dark, we continue to follow up with them at intervals, even if it's just a message through Basecamp to say, hey, I know you've been delayed by this, you had surgery, or your mom's in the hospital. Are you ready? How are things going? Are you ready to pick back up? Is there anything that we can do to keep this process moving along? They will appreciate it, and and you will be better off because you won't have 600 projects sitting out there. The one that I have out there that right now, that's for the last, I don't know what I said, 2 years, it's the only one. We don't run into very many client delays anymore because we continue to manage it and we try to stay on top of it. Lessons learned are higher profit margins. I said that every time I screw up or every time something goes wrong and I realize that I put that back into our proposal, right? I either put a section in to help talk about that and articulate it, or it becomes a terms and conditions within our proposal. The mistake for that a lot of times can be on you, the developer, because you fail to articulate the expectations to the client. You're assuming they know something they don't. So take those lessons learned, build them back into the project. That scope creep that we just had in the last slide, that just took on a project that we're launching, I think it's sometime this week. We went from like $15,000 for the original project. At launch, we invoiced for another $3,500. That's how much scope creep and how many changes the client had that we had to account for during the build process. But that's revenue, right? Don't leave that money sitting on the table. Make sure that you're accounting for those changes, and then if there's been mistakes that happen, you take that and you apply that back to your process so that you can make sure that you are truly, setting expectations properly. Okay, those are all the data points and the slides I wanted to go through. Now it's up to questions, and we have a little bit of time left. So Corey, if you want to jump back in, I am happy to answer questions as people have them.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. That was outstanding. I just love how deep, obviously, because you've been so successful, you thought about all of these things. And by the way, the Yorkie at the end is the most adorable one. I haven't had 2 Yorkies in my life. So a couple of questions, Rebecca. And again, this was just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you offer pricing at an hourly rate or a project rate?
So for custom development, where we have the graphic designer and a project manager and coding involved, we do a project rate, right? But I calculate that out based on components of the project. So I have a project budget, and I have a full cost sheet to say, here's all the elements that go into a project, here are the employees, here's the estimated cost of each, and then if that project needs something unique, that becomes an hourly rate that gets added in to that cost. And then for post-live work, we do hourly rates with people, or we do maintenance. And here's an interesting thing about the hourly rate. We recently raised our rates from $100 per hour to $125 for maintenance, basic coding, updates, things like that. I did not have one client complain. We hadn't done a price increase since we started the business. The only email I got from somebody was, well, it's about time you raised your rates. You guys are well worth it. So, I don't know what everybody's hourly rates are, but if you're doing hourly, if you've never raised your rates as your experience has gone up, consider that and take that to heart, because I was really surprised by that outcome.
Interesting. You mentioned your one-page contract, and I think several people, including myself, were curious about your one-page contract.
My one-page contract says, we're going into this agreement together. This is your name. You're located here. I'm Web Savvy. I'm in the state of Michigan. Here's what we're delivering. This contract pertains to the proposal dated, blah, blah, blah. We're signing this contract on this date. If there's any disputes, they will be served in court in the state of Michigan, so my lawyers don't have to go to another state. And then that's it. And if it's an SEO engagement, I have a verbiage in there that says that we adhere to white hat practices, although we cannot control the changes that Google and Bing and the other search engines have over time. And that's really what it says, and their signatures, because everything points back to that contract or proposal, and that proposal's got like 3 pages of terms and conditions. My proposal's like 25 pages. But it's a template, right? I don't have to change much when I'm sending it out because I have it all there because I know what we've made mistakes on and what's worked in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good stuff. Okay. Yeah, so your proposal is about the actual work, which is where you kind of go back to the expectations of the client versus, what you have, and that's where you clarify it, and that's why it's probably so long, I guess.
Yeah, and here's another reason why I do that. The contracts have to go to legal department sometimes, and if you keep the contract simple, it makes the interactions with legal much easier.
Awesome. By the way, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not trying to be an attorney right now, but I've always kind of, contracts I've seen and heard about is that you always want to, like you just said, you don't want people to go to a different, your attorneys have to go to a different state. You want them to have to incur the cost on that side to come to you.
Yep, absolutely.
That's an important point to look for. And, of course, consultant attorney. Okay. So a question was asked early on, which was, do you think your approach differentiates you and your business from your competition?
Yes, absolutely, because I ask a lot of questions right at the beginning, and the people who appreciate that definitely puts us in a different class. Another thing that makes a huge difference is my response rate. So I don't have inquiries go into someone on our team. They all come into me, right? And I try to reply to them as fast as I can. And that's something that prospects will say. They're like, you know what? I reached out to, 20 WordPress firms this week, and so far you're one of 2 that have replied to me. That kind of thing speaks volumes with people, and that's a differentiator. You wouldn't think it is, but it is.
Yeah, you're helping close, and it does say, like, this whole time you've kind of been unpacking the way you do handle client expectations is you're educating clients about how to work with a professional.
Yes, and here's one thing that I didn't talk about, but if I'm not a fit for somebody, right, I do take the time to say, I'm not a fit for you, and here's why. It sounds like this is what you're looking for. Here's people I would recommend that would be a better fit. And I do give them referrals out, whether it be they want a unicorn, someone who can be interactive with, design and development. It's not really a graphic designer or a coder. It's one person, right? Or it's they need a larger firm, or they need that paid discovery, right? I take the time to say, here's where, here's your expectations. And if I think their expectations are really crazy, I nicely say, your expectations are crazy. I'd better align them with this. And it's you're not burning bridges with people. I don't know if I'll ever hear from them again, but at least I'm trying to help them be successful, even if it's not with us.
Yeah. So when somebody, asks you for a project, do you typically try to get on a phone call, Skype or something before you give them, like, the actual proposal? Or do you send it to them and then follow up? Or how do you think? Because I'm just thinking about if people balk over price, and that part of, sharing that is the voice and the person and that kind of stuff, especially for, I would think, the bigger projects. How do you handle that?
So I do questions in email first to see if we're a basic fit, and then the next step is to jump on the phone with them, and it's usually a half hour to an hour conversation. Sometimes there's 1, sometimes there are 2, and it's after that conversation that I send the proposal. The proposal will have the price. But by that time, they've spoken to me, and they've realized that I do have a lot of experience. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s, so I've been doing internet marketing for 15 years, and they can tell that by having the conversation with me. And then the other thing is they talk with me, the business owner, as opposed to a sales rep who may or may not know the terminology that they're talking about or the things that they need, or can relate it to a real-world experience. So that makes a difference, right? So by the time that proposal comes, they have a good understanding of what that cost is going to be, and they're not surprised by it. And if I am higher than what they're expecting, which is generally the case, they're okay with it because they feel that I've got the experience to execute.
Gotcha.
I will whip out cost guidance numbers in email if I feel that they are not at all a fit or they do not have budget. I'm not going to allocate the time for phone calls and proposals when I can. You get to feel that they just don't have the budget, and that does happen a lot, right? People they don't, because they've not purchased a website for a long time, or this isn't something that they do often, they don't know what to expect for pricing, and and their budget is way lower than what it should be.
Gotcha. And she mentioned she has been doing this for a long time. She has. I mentioned at the first of the webinar. I want to take a second to mention that Rebecca did SEO Week for us back in December. 4 days of awesome, great information about how to kind of level up your SEO skills. at kind of my prodding, she has over the past couple of months put together a course and called To the Top, and it's an excellent course. Our team is going through it. Even my wife is going through it, and it's so good. Anyway, she's offering a 25% discount to you for that, and I just put that into the chat called Love iThemes, all caps. That's good until next Friday, so you want to go over there and do that if you're looking to take your SEO to the next level. Foundational stuff. I've searched and searched for SEO consultants, and there's no one else but Rebecca. At least until you start taking a course and know how to do those things for yourself. But 8 hours of training and all that, I want to make sure I mention that before we get off the webinar. But you can tell from Rebecca's presentation, she knows what she's doing. She's been doing it for a long time and at a very, very professional level.
Did you just call me old?
Nope.
I'm just teasing you.
Rebecca sent me 500 pins yesterday to my house. She knows I have a problem with, an addiction to pins. And,
yeah, see, you're not leaving this in properly. So Corey confessed to me that he has a thing for pens, that he likes to pick them up at hotels or when he's at a restaurant. He may not give them back to the server who gave him the pen for the bill to sign. And we joked about it, and he gave more information about it and the type of pen he liked. So if you can actually go to eBay and you can actually buy a box of 500 misprinted pens for relatively cheap and just send them out to random people. So that's what I did.
You ever want to prank somebody with some swag, then,
Yeah, you can find really weird gifts from eBay.
So I'm never going to run out of pens.
No, 500. That you don't have to steal in a pen for the next year and a half.
Well, hey, as we're winding down our time, we're just kind of having fun, but I just posted a link to Rebecca's Twitter, so you can say thank you, please, to her for sharing her experience and expertise. She did this as just being a friend of iThemes and wanting to share her experience and expertise, and it's been an excellent webinar. She'll have slides here in a little bit on her SlideShare, and then we'll post the recording to the iThemes blog shortly afterwards. I'll probably give us until tomorrow morning to get that done. But anyway, it's been a wonderful webinar, and I hope you guys will go on Twitter and say thank you to Rebecca for everything. We're already trying to schedule her for March to come back and share more of her awesome expertise and experience. I'm telling you, she knows, like, of all the web developers and agency owners I've known, she's got her process down so much, and I think it makes her life much more manageable. And as you can tell from this, this is a huge part of her success. So anyway, without further ado, we'll let Rebecca go back to doing what she does best, and be sure to check out her SEO course called To the Top. I put a link up there in the chat, and there's a coupon for 25% off until Friday. So you want to do that. It's an excellent, excellent course. So anyway, well, Rebecca, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the webinar. We appreciate you so much, and we'll get that March webinar booked and be able to share some more into the community.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Okay, see you all. Thank you for a great webinar being here today.